Hey everybody, with last week's episode getting canceled due to things out of our control, we were able to sit in with Kevin Carleton from the History Goon podcast, and that is going to be this week's episode. Get ready to enjoy our trip learning about the Winged Hussars with Kevin Carleton from History Goon podcast.
Reflect also that your king fights at the head of you, and as well be confident that the god of battle whose cause we defend will undoubtedly fight for us. That was Jan Sobieski. My name's Kevin, and this is History Goon. What's going on, everybody? I'm back again. My name's Kevin, and welcome to another episode of the History Goon podcast. You're going to notice that I've got people with me this week, which is going to be fun. I am here with my friends David and Sarah that run a show called Macabre Emporium, and I'm going to have them explain what they do on their show.
Well, hello there, Ghana. Would you guys be gooners if they listen to History Goon?
Oh, I don't know. I don't like that. Oh,
no,
man.
not with the. Oh, and of course, now Lugosi has decided to join us this evening as well. Even though he'll probably take off here in 3 seconds. But yeah, probably gooners is probably not a good thing with what the term goon has taken over now to be, unfortunately.
Exactly. And it's like, I picked the name before I knew what people had done to it. I'm like, oh, no. It's definitely, no, I don't want you to do that.
Right.
Please don't. It's pretty gross. But anyway, let us know what you guys do with your show.
So with Macabre Emporium, yes, it's a true crime podcast. And yes, another one of those, but we have made a stipulation, not really stipulation. Our biggest thing is with Macabre Emporium is we're not covering the big name people. There will be no Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Richard Ramirez, Ed Gein, or Gein, depending on who you ask. You know, none of those guys, we're not talking about them as a subject matter. They've been overdone. There's nothing new out there. Even with, the newest season of Mindhunter coming out there with Ed Gein coming out, we're still not going to do it. We decided that when we started up Macabre Emporium, there's none of that's going to be brought up other than a point of reference. We're covering things of lesser known true crime. And some really goofy, oddball things in history. Like, did you know during World War II there was a 2-month ban on sliced bread in larger cities?
I didn't know about that. I knew about the ice cream ships, though.
Yes. In the United States, like stateside, there was a ban on sliced bread for the metal parts for the war effort.
That makes sense. Definitely makes sense. Because you can't make the machinery to slice bread if you have to save all the metal to make, airplanes and stuff like that. Yeah.
And not only other little goofy oddball things like that, I also do a lot of history things that most people have never heard of. Like the bathtub riots that happened on the southwest border of Texas during World War I. And Sarah does mostly true crime.
Mostly. Sometimes paranormal, but mostly just true crime.
Yep. And I don't know if I want to bring up this little tidbit. Actually, from our episode 1, which was heavy from her home state, both came from the same area she grew up in, which there was an active serial killer in that area when she was younger.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Fun stuff. Love my hometown.
And that same episode, I covered probably one of the most bizarre funerals in history, the Great Pizza Funeral of Michigan.
I remember that. That was so good.
But also, whenever I do true crime, I always seem to have this knack to pick things to go from 0 to 100 real fast.
Yep.
Like, I talk about a lot of mass shooters for the most part. Sarah does one and done, lack of a better term, murders and things like that. Plus serial killers you don't really hear of a whole lot.
Have you done the Luby's shooting yet?
Yes, I have done the Luby's cafeteria shooting.
I couldn't remember if you guys did or not, because I know you did the I can't remember the guy's name because you guys didn't use his name. The McDonald's shooter.
James Huberty.
Yeah, that was rough, especially if you were dumb like me and decided to go look up crime scene photos.
Oh, I got to watch the documentary 77 minutes on that, which show the actual video footage from St. Cathedral Police Department. or is the San Diego Police Department. But either way, department doesn't matter. It's still the actual crime scene video footage they used.
Yeah, and that guy did not hold back, and he didn't warn you that he's like, "Hey, I'm about to show you video of dead kids.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go."
Yeah,
and this kind of went right into it. But like, I've never heard anybody else cover that one. I've never heard anybody else cover the bathtub riots. I don't believe, and the I can't remember what it was. It was the not the sensory deprivation thing, but the audio that you played of like basically trying to train like black people how to react in restaurants when people are walking behind them.
Oh yeah, and you're talking about the Greensboro 4. That's actually an audio simulation they have at the International Civil Rights Museum, which is actually in the same building that Piggly Wiggly was in, where that all took place.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's something I forgot that in the episode.
That's a rough one. Anybody that's gonna like go like seek your show out, that's a rough episode. Like that'll make you mad.
Watching David do the notes for that episode was rough. Yeah.
But it was a very important story that needed to be told, even more so now with today as it is. That it's a story that needed to be told. So like, and with that being 3D audio, like within our headphones that we use for recording, made it even probably 100 times worse. And then one of our mutual friends from another podcast, Levi, he actually experienced it at the museum there. And he said that there's like subwoofers in the seat, making you feel like somebody's kicking the stool you're sitting in.
Kind of makes you wish that we just like could not suck as a species for like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And stop being awful to each other. And then you also did one of my favorite episodes you guys did was the Bath Township. That one, you guys went hard on that one,
because we also had a unique perspective of being able to go to where the school actually was standing at one point and actually go walk the ground. And we've also met with the children of those that did survive, and they are absolutely ecstatic every time they hear that somebody is telling their story,
because it's keeping the family alive.
Yeah.
Yep. And Sarah, I didn't forget about you, because I sometimes have a hard time with your episodes because like I kind of lost my stomach for true crime a little bit.
Yeah,
and
understandable.
The Gertrude Banaszewski episode made me want to like.
Yep.
Yeah. And what was the other one?
Cherish Periwinkle.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, and I've actually only heard, I think, one other show cover that. I think you did better though. So
thank you.
I'm sure it might be the same show we're both thinking of, which is funny.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
So that honestly, the Cherish Periwinkle episode was the one that affected me the most. Like I knew at the point that where I was going to go in and tell the portion of the injuries that happened to her.
Yeah.
Like I had to take a break before that. I was doing my best to like not cry, knowing that I was going in to tell that part of it. Like, yeah, that was probably the worst for me.
Yeah, that I could hear it. Like that was before I actually like met you guys in person, but I could hear it in your voice that you were like right there. Like, oh man.
Yep, that one got
like
me.
Even before we recorded that, I'm like, are you sure you want to do this? Because we can just cut that part out and never let that episode see the light of day. And it could be why all those details is why it's never been done by other shows.
And I think my answer to that was, no, I'm not ready, but I'm going to do it. So let's do it.
I think I've only done 2 episodes like that ever. That as I was doing them, I was like, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And that was on like in a previous life when I did I think the hell was his name? George Paisnell. He was a serial child molester and rapist on Jersey, on the island of Jersey off the coast of France. Like dude, it like made a trench coat with like nails and stuff coming out of the sleeves and wore a weird ass mask.
Yeah,
with,
I've
like,
had that on my list to tell Sarah that one at some point.
That one's rough.
But there's also one of the bigger things about Macabre Emporium is it's like, oh hey, I'm doing this week, and that's it. We don't tell anybody else we don't tell each other details other than that. So all reactions you hear are authentic and genuine out of both of us.
So like you won't even tell me Okay, so for me, I don't tell him anything but the subject. So it'll be like true crime, and that's all he gets. He doesn't know what it is. He tries to tell me sometimes what he's doing, and I'm just like, don't tell me. I don't want to know. I'll find out when you tell everybody else.
There's one episode I did that I kept constantly, two actually, now that I think of it, and one of them she gave me the idea for. One of them was the Great Dumpling War. I just kept laughing just because of how ridiculous it was. And she's like, what? I was like, I can't tell you because it's that ridiculous. Also, Joseph Pujol, the world's first professional farter. Because the more I looked into it, the more ridiculous it got. And I started just giggling more. And she's like, what? And I can't tell you. And then I was done with it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to have more fun with this. So I went back and changed every time when I mentioned the word fart, I changed it into, and that wasn't fart, something that was butt. I would change it to make it some other slang term for your backside, basically. I think I ended up fitting 8 or 10 different ways to say that in that episode.
Yep.
Damn. That's impressive because there's not really a lot of ways to say that word.
Oh, I had to look it up. I think it was turd cutter was the one.
Turd cutter was the one that got my ass out.
And it also could be just the way that I said it is what finally got her in.
No, because it was the first one that you dropped, and I wasn't expecting it.
Right.
It's those fucking one-liners.
Nobody expects a turd cutter right off.
Right.
No.
So even though it's a name, we still do try to have some fun with it. And so I've done some inspirational figures of sort. One of them technically could be on History Goon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure.
Which one?
Helge Meyer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I will definitely have to have you back on for that one again, though, because you're the only one of the two of us between me and you that's actually friends with the dude on Facebook. So, which is pretty excellent. Actually, another one that I think you would be fun for you guys because it's out towards your neck of the woods is I can't remember the guy's name, but he's the founder of Little Caesars. Dude was out of his mind, but he had so much money and he just did really cool stuff with it.
I feel like I should know his name.
It's Mike something, but I can't remember what his last name is.
I remember at one point because he was in the military, got out. I think he used the GI Bill to go to college, got a business degree, and was like, I'm just going to start selling cheap pizza.
Right.
And then he bought a hockey team and then tried to buy a baseball team and no, sorry, you can't buy them. And then 2 years later, he comes back and he's like, hey, how about with this?
Right.
Yeah, sure, why not? And then just still sells $5 pizzas, which are decent.
Is it Mike or is it Chuck?
I want to say it's Mike, but his biggest thing that he did was never known until after he died.
Which was?
He paid Rosa Parks rent until she passed away with no fanfare whatsoever after she was assaulted in her own home. And he moved her into a better area, into a condo, and he just quietly paid her, all of her fees until she passed away.
Mike Ilitch.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's I wish we had more people like that where you're like, I've got a ton of money and I'm just going to do wild shit, but also be a really good person.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard, I don't think. I mean, I don't know because I don't have any money, but I can't imagine it would be a difficult thing to do.
We don't know either, don't worry.
I'm just lucky that I don't have to pay for my own electricity, so... Well, separately from how I already pay for it, but anyway. So...
Yeah, but also one thing about the Bath Township disaster, I don't know if you are aware of this, but they are shooting to open in 2027, the 100th anniversary, a much smaller version of the original school to house the Bath Township School Systems Museum, to have a dedicated exhibit to it and bring the cupola that was still on the building indoors finally.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
No, I knew that you said that they had recently they'd either they'd done renovations or something to the museum, but I didn't know that they were actually building a new one.
The current museum is actually in the hallway of their auditorium of their middle school that's literally across the street from the school. But their plans is to incorporate part of the original foundation, which you can see on a day when the grass is right on top of it and it looks like a big yellow line through the grass.
You can see, the outline where the building stood.
That guy was such a douche, cranky old man. All right, so what we came here to talk about today actually holds quite a bit of significance based on the day of recording, which, as of recording, this is September 12th, which is kind of the exact date that the entire main part of our story takes place on. Obviously, day before would be 9/11, which was historically a bad day, considering where we're going and where we've been in the last 25-ish years.
Right.
So let's get started by talking about Jan Sobieski, who was born almost exactly 350 years to the day before me. His birthday is August 17th. Mine is August 18th. He was born in 1629. I was not, thankfully, because I'd be a little uncomfortable doing this. So his parents weren't like what everybody else's parents would have been back then, like farmers and maids and peasants, basically. His father, Jakub, was the voivode, which is a warlord of Rus, Poland, or Ruthenia was actually the title of the place, but Rus, Poland is just easier. He was also the constable of Krakow, which basically makes him the highest law enforcement in the city, below like your governor or whatever it would have been at that point in time, mayor. I'm not sure what Poland would have had for titles. And since we know his mother's name, she was actually important too, because usually get back this far in time and it's like, here's dad and his whole lineage of names, and then and his mom.
Right, because she wasn't probably considered, royalty, so her name wasn't important unless she was like a queen of sorts.
They weren't people back then. Give her a name, So she was the granddaughter. Oh, I should probably say her name, Zofia. So we just made a big deal about her actually.
Yes, we're gonna make this big deal about her name being, important, and then never mention it again.
Sorry, Mom. She's the granddaughter of Stanislaw Zolkowski. He had a bunch of like title and rank and land in like the northern part of Poland. Not really a lot known about his childhood. They weren't real good at keeping records back then. But Jan graduated from the University of Krakow in 1646, and from there, him and his brother Marek traveled Western Europe for a couple of years. And during their travels, they would meet with some fairly important people, like Louis II de Bourbon, who will probably get a future episode because he was pretty cool, Charles II of England, William II, Prince of Orange. While they're out and about, they picked up French, English, Latin, and Italian, because you had to know all these different languages back then to be able to do business wherever. And I generally think that sometimes the further back in history you go, they were actually smarter than us. And we've just gotten like, I can kind of speak one language good and
it'll suffice.
Like I've said before, I can speak English and I can understand English. I just don't comprehend it well. The brothers would end up returning home in 1648. After word had reached them of the death of King Władysław of Poland, and there's a little uprising that followed. Both brothers would join up in the army, and since both of them have money, they got to they founded their own cavalry units. Because back then it didn't really matter if you were a good military commander. It was if you had money, you could basically do whatever you wanted. And that's something that actually kind of existed all the way up into our Civil War, where if you had money, you could go, I'm just going to build my own unit and I'm going to call myself a colonel and call it a day. Or if you lived in certain parts of the country, you could just go, hey, you, the number 417 out there in the field, I'm going to give you $500 and you're going to go fight for me instead so I don't have to. Which is pretty not awesome, by the way. So the unit that Marek would found would be light Cossack cavalry, which was essentially just light cavalry, dudes in chainmail with pikes or whatever, not very heavily armed. They're going to move pretty quickly. Jan, on the other hand, would build a unit of heavy hussars, and both of them would fight in the siege of Zamość. But not long after that, there's a rift between the brothers, and they kind of separate a bit. In 1649, Jan fought at the Battle of Zaborov, where Cossack and Crimean forces, so that's essentially what would be like Western Russian, Eastern Ukrainian kind of like tribal people would be that kind of group there. They brought a combined 50,000 men to this battle, and the Polish-Lithuanian forces numbered about 40,000. So they're outnumbered. Probably not a huge deal, right? According to Wikipedia, the Poles and Lithuanians lost somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 men killed or wounded. And on the other side for the Cossacks and Crimeans, the casualty just said, quote, heavy. So they didn't have a good day. They both fought at the same battle, but kind of on opposite sides. And where Jan found like a ton of success and did really well, Merrick didn't have such good luck. He would actually end up being captured by some of the Tartar forces that were there, and he was killed in captivity. But he was among company when he was killed in captivity because they spent 2 full days beheading people to a total of 8,000 dead. I couldn't imagine how many guys you would have to square up to be like, okay, we need, a half a dozen volunteers to work in 8-hour shifts or something like that, just lopping dudes' heads off.
Yep, and then people constantly grinding axes or swords to keep them sharp for it to work.
And then, just some dude running them back and forth and swapping them out.
And people said leg day's bad.
I'm doing squats. I'm doing shoulders and back. I'm getting a full workout, And the worst, it's a good thing they didn't have creatine back then. That would have been really bad.
And the worst thing, I don't know if you've heard of the guy, Robert Frank. If you've ever seen him, he's a bodybuilder. He's like, your arms better be fucking swole. I don't know why he just came to mind after saying, it's like, if people say arm day is bad, leg day is bad. He just like came to mind about that.
You imagine him there in like full Mongolian gear, just trying to motivate these dudes to kill as many people as they could as fast as they can. Just doing this. He's just like bench pressing 2 small children on a broomstick or something.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So after this battle, Jan would be promoted to the rank of, I'm not even going to try it again, colonel. And he fought at the Battle of Brestchenka, which was in Western Russia. And again, finds himself, up against the Cossacks and Crimeans, and they have a total of 200,000 men this time. And the Poles and Lithuanians were like, cool, we're going to bring 80,000 and see what happens. On the first day of battle, about 2,000 Hussars were sent out to take care of a fairly large force of Tartars, because full disclosure, this is the second time we've tried to record this episode. I think last time I referred to them as, was it Shasta Mongolians? And then I called them Fago Mongolians, and you got upset.
Yeah, it's like, I was like, oh, hey, you better watch out with that.
Yep.
These guys are Kroger brand Mongolians. Insert store brand.
Great value Mongolians.
Great.
Sam's Club step people. So these guys get completely wiped out. Day 2 would see the Poles, they're feeling pretty good, so they decide instead of going after a harassing force that's coming after them, they're going directly at the main body of the Cossack and Crimean forces. And when I say, like, they attacked, I mean the cavalry did everything well. The other guys were, like, the infantry was hanging out with the artillery, which cavalry and artillery at the same time is a weird combination, because you have dudes on horseback and then people chucking bombs into the middle of everything from 5,000 yards away. That'd be wild. I've got a sword. I've got a bomb that I can shoot a half a mile into the middle of everything with absolutely like zero aim. We're just gonna wing it and hope it hits something
that's close enough.
Accuracy by volume.
Yeah.
So due to some terrain difficulties, the Tartars would force them back. And while they're chasing the Hussars back, they get ass blasted by artillery. And after the artillery stops, the infantry goes in and starts to kind of like clean up. Day 3, we have an interesting name here. Duke Jeremy Wisniewski. Jeremy does not strike me as a name of royalty.
It's like the odd thing out of there. The name Jeremy just does not fit in there. Like, I don't know what would fit in there, but Jeremy just does not fit, No,
I mean, it's spelled pretty closely. It's Jeremi. I mean, I think there's only really 2 ways to spell it, right? And I mean, I went to school with a kid named Jeremy, and he was definitely not doing anything cool, like or burning CDs and cutting them into ninja stars and throwing them into the back of bus seats. But
Right, like I was about to say, Jeremy is the kid that, was always doing some shady shit in high school, and now when that, you see him on your local nosy neighbors group, getting caught stealing catalytic converters or something like that.
he was I think that's got to be the generation before Kyle was the kid punching holes in drywall.
Yeah,
it was Jeremy before that. And if your name's Jeremy, I meant what I said.
I haven't met a lot of Jeremys that I've.
Yeah, and actually, the one that I was talking about is kind of like sprouted into a regular productive human being. He's got like a family and kids and a good job now, so it's like that's pretty cool. But I mean, we were both kind of shitbags in high school. So
to be fair, though, he probably has a side hustle and makes the Chinese throwing stars out of CDs and sells them on Etsy or some shit.
He gets, puts that little S thing on it. I don't have to say anything more than that. You know which one I'm talking about. He's drawn it on there with a Sharpie marker too for, nostalgia.
Oh, yeah. Stop this one, TSA. Sir, is that yeah, it's exactly what you think it is. I'm going through. So Wisniewski led 18 companies of heavy cavalry, mostly hussars, with Jan Sobieski being in charge of one of these units. And they go around the right wing of the entire enemy force and hit them just right, and they end up breaking through the lines and getting almost into their camp, which is a huge deal. And we're going to run into that. Spoiler alert. We're going to see that again as we go, because they continue to fight the exact same way as they always will. So they would recover and regroup eventually, and the Cossack Tartar forces would kind of pull back to a more fortified area, if it's like a fort or a fortress of some sort that was there. For the next 10 days, the Poles and Lithuanians hound this place with artillery to the point that they only stopped because the Tartars and Cossacks sent somebody out like, all right, let's like chill with the artillery because this kind of sucks. And they ended up signing a treaty, which effectively ended the battle. Everything said and done, the Cossack Tartar casualties numbered like 30 to 40,000, and the Poles and Lithuanians claim about 700, which may be light. I would think maybe 700 that the other guys killed, and another like 15,000 or so that you killed with your own artillery. Who knows? But I think 700 might be not accurate, would be the best way to put that. So before we go too far, I want to kind of hop back into what exactly hussars are, because they're kind of the main character of this entire story. So the Winged Hussars were a heavily armored and armed cavalry unit that's created by the Polish king at the time, Stefan Bathory, who is the cousin of Elizabeth Bathory, who we're going to get to her at some point in a different episode for sure. Yeah, that woman was out of her mind. They trained in a mixed bag of tactics, which was borrowed from their Lithuanian allies, who borrowed it from the Tartars, Shasta Mongolians again, whose territory butted up against the Lithuanian border. They started off basically completely unarmored, except for a light shield that was almost shaped like a wing. So it was very, very long on the outside and tapered down to almost a point on the part that would be closer to the guy holding it himself. And this was designed more to kind of like deflect lances and anything like that as they were going. But eventually they'd move away from that shield, get a proper shield. Like, I'm going to get rid of my mustache. It's making me crazy.
It's probably what I said, and now it's with you in your head.
It's all in my head, just, psychosomatic nose hairs going crazy.
It's like when people talk about, it's like, they feel like their skin's crawling as a bug over because of seeing one, and then they feel like a bug on them. That's probably the same exact thing that's going on now, but it's just mustache hairs instead.
I've had nights where I've actually stopped recording and gone in and used the neti pot and just blasted my sinuses out because I'm like, I can't fucking do this. This is making me crazy. So they would eventually do enough that they could save up, to buy like an upgrade kit, which would include a heavy metal, like lobstered breastplates and shoulder guards. Lobstered meaning that they're like jointed. So if you're to look at like the bottom of a lobster, how the plates lock together on their bellies, the armor did that so they have a little bit more maneuverability and still protected. They'd have that. They would end up with heavy lances, like heavy ones that you could hit a guy with on horseback and basically pick them up as you were riding. And the whole winged part comes from the giant ass metal wings that they had fashioned to the back of their armor. These are not only super cool to look at, they also had function. The feathers that were locked into the wings themselves, like the frame, were either made of actual feathers or in some cases metal. And when they would rattle against each other as they were riding, it would make noise. Their horses are used to it. Enemy horses are not. And I don't know if you guys have ever been around horses. You spook them and they go crazy, like trampling all over the place, sidestepping and throwing people off. That's why I don't trust anything bigger than dogs usually. Because like if a dog steps on you, it sucks. If a horse steps on you, you like break things and
you're gonna feel it.
Yeah. I mean, catwas are cool because they're just basically giant dogs. They're pretty chill. Horses are spastic and weird, and I don't f with horses. And another thing that the wings did is they kind of thwarted like a fairly obscure weapon that you don't really think of when it comes to combat, which would be lassos. So if somebody's riding by and they throw a lasso and they're trying to get you, like Red Dead style, they end up getting the wings first. And when they pull tight or you ride off, it just breaks the wings off, leaving the horseman still horsed. So you can just kind of circle back and kick this guy's teeth in if you want to, or just continue to do whatever. So after the Polish king, John Casimir, saw how well Jan was fighting and how like ferociously protective he was of his guys and everybody else with him, he decides to make him part of a diplomatic envoy to go to the Ottoman Empire. While he's there, he learned the Tartar language, which is important because you're going to fight these guys forever. So knowing a little bit of their language is a good idea. And he even picked up some of their like tactics and traditions. So while he's in the Middle East doing all this stuff, well, not really even technically the Middle East, kind of like lower Europe here, because this is when the Ottomans kind of swept up through and ran everything for a while. He's doing that, and the Swedes come down into Poland and they start something called the Deluge in 1655. He's part of a big group of Polish regiments that were led by Przemysław Olpolinski. And again, like RYZY in this name is awful. And the unit that he's part of actually would break off from Poland and then sign in to fight with the Swedes against the Poles. And he's fighting under Carl Gustaf, who was the king of Sweden, and also not the same person that they named a giant recoilless rifle after. I think Sabaton may have done a Carl Gustaf song. I'm not 100% sure.
They've done so many songs with different people. I don't know.
Yeah.
If
they did, it's on like Lion of the North, I would assume, because that was one they did about all the like the crazy Swedes, because they themselves are crazy Swedes.
The Lion of the North comes up when I put in Sabaton's song about Carl Gustaf. Unless I spelled something wrong.
I'm wondering, because there was 16 Carl Gustavs apparently. So I'm sure it was one of them. Oh my God, Gustavus Adolphus. Is that him? I don't know. They all have the same name, and they're probably all the same, like four. See, and
the album gets interesting. That is because they recorded it in Swedish and in English. I only know this because I only seen it like stateside in one record store.
Oh, seriously?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't buy it.
But didn't buy it because it's probably still there because nobody probably knows what it is, even though it's in a locked case.
Yeah.
There's probably anybody's going to see that, they're not going to know what it is.
Wasn't that at the half price bookstore?
Mm-hmm. Like this little half price bookstore, they had this like little box, like the size for LPs, and a little slot in the top where you can just throw them. And, and then I saw Sabaton. I was like, what the hell? Yeah. I mean, that's all you can do to see what's in this little case.
That's crazy.
That's in Fort Wayne, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've never actually bought a record. Like, how much are they usually?
It depends. There's like many factors into it. It's like, is it more than one? Is it like a double LP from there? Is it 180 gram? Is it imported from the US? I mean, before things are now, it varies. It's somewhere between $20 to $50 for brand new ones.
Oh, okay.
And then up from there with like first editions or rarity or limited quantities. Like there's 2 Static X LPs I'm missing out of having all of them, and one of them is $300 because they have not done a reprint since 2006 when it was first issued.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
because like I've seen them at Walmart, and it's all music that I wouldn't listen to anyway.
Right,
and they're like $35-$40. So like,
yeah, it's like normal price, but I wouldn't spend $35 on a vinyl from Walmart. Yeah, because they're not going to get the same care as you would from a record store. They're going to be in a shipping container, and then a box truck, and then just stored in the back where it's not temperature controlled compared to in a record store where it's going to actually be, handled correctly. And there's only like been maybe one that I have bought from an actual record store that probably was just because of how long it's been sitting there and the temperature fluctuations over the years. But it still plays fine. You can see the warp in it, but it plays like it's supposed to.
Your Doobie Brothers?
No, the one from Shaky Graves and then the War Came, I think is the one. I know it's that one. Yeah, that one. You can see the warp in it, but it plays fine.
Nice.
And there is a way to fix it. I've
never really messed with records.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of want to, but I never have.
It's an expensive hobby. It's an expensive hobby.
Habit, hobby, whatever.
I know. What's that?
It's habit, hobby, whatever you want to call it.
I know Chase that does Almost Fiction and on the network with us has got a pretty extensive record collection. I just listen to shit on Spotify because it's easy,
But it sounds so good.
Like, there's actually an LP on our shelf that we got that I won from somebody that we follow on their Twitch channel. It's actually a funk record, but the interesting thing is about the back of it, I mean, the outside jacket is like literally falling apart. It's from the 1970s, but the interesting thing about it is on the back of it, there's 2 songs circled in an ink pen, and it's more curiosity. Why did some of the previous owner circle these 2 songs? Because, I mean, they wanted somebody to hear these 2 songs in particular,
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the interesting thing when you start looking at, pre-owned LPs that you see little things like that, it's just the backstory about it, things like that.
I get that with a lot of like the used books that I buy through thrift books, where you'll get it and you rip open the bag and you're like looking at it and you're like, okay, it's in good shape. Why is that one particular page like dog-eared? You go through and you're like, oh, okay, well I'm sure that'll make sense at some point, but somebody obviously wanted to save that spot. But that's usually the first thing that I check out. Like there has to be a reason that this got saved, So less than a year after taking the side with the Swedes, he would take his entire regiment and basically tell this guy to, suck eggs, and they went back to fight in favor of Poland in 1656. By May of 1656, he's promoted to standard bearer of the crown, meaning that his unit wasn't under like a random noble's banner where they could be like, okay, we're 60 men short, go over here. He's not that guy anymore. He is fighting directly under orders of the king, because he's essentially his, not quite his right hand, but he's very, very close. He's like right hand adjacent, left hand. I don't know. So July 28th through the 30th of 1656, they fight in the Battle of Warsaw, where Jan commanded a 2,000-man cavalry unit made up of his old buddies, the Tartar horsemen. And David, I'm going to have you, when we get closer, I want you to, I'll send you a very specific picture that I want you to show Sarah of this guy, so that she can see what he looks like. Because if you look at him, if he were to exist now, this guy would be like chilling out at a sports bar watching Bears games.
Okay.
Um,
So
but
this
I've
isn't
got-
the Jaw family, right?
what's that?
This isn't the Jaw family.
No. We'll get to them though. That's no. This dude would be like, he'd be entering like bratwurst eating contests and stuff. Very distinguished looking gentleman here.
I feel like that's
No,
a lie.
Oh no, actually, like he totally looks like the kind of dude that I would hang out with. He looks like your uncle's friend.
Okay.
Um,
Which is funny because my uncle's friend was actually Polak. That's what everybody called him. Was Polak.
Oh, yeah. So we have there's a town like, I guess it's connected to where I live, where back in like the 1800s when everybody was immigrating over here, like all of the Irish and Polish people landed in this one particular town. And I worked with a guy who is from there. His family has been there since like 1900. And he had to explain to me, because I asked him one day, I'm like, what is a stone pegger? He's like, oh, that's what we used to get called when we were kids, because we didn't have anything better to do. So we'd go out in the dirt roads and just chuck rocks at each other. I'm like,
Okay.
Wow.
okay. Yeah. He's like rolling up his sleeves, and he's like, yeah, I've got one there from where I got stitches, and he's got like a scar on his chin from where he got blasted with a rock. It's like, yeah, the 60s were wild, huh?
Sounds like
But
a
you guys
good time.
have electricity there? And honestly, like, I've never met a person of Polish descent that if you called them a Polak, they'd be like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very not offended people. So this battle is not a great showing for the Poles. They ended up retreating with like relatively few losses, but they did lose a stronghold to the Swedes and the Brandenburg Persians, which that's Germany now, if I remember correctly, for Prussia, right? I believe so. They didn't come out on top, but Jan did well enough that between here and another siege that he fought in, he'd be elected to parliament and was one of the main negotiators of a treaty with the Tartars. After that, nothing awful ever happened in Warsaw, Poland, ever again. Even as of today, nothing bad has ever happened in Poland since then, except for World War II.
Right.
And
I was able to
the
keep a straight
aftermath.
face this time. Except unlike last night when I lost it. It was like, I'm not going to ruin this joke. Nope, can't do it.
Poland isn't the most haunted place in Europe. Why would it be? So after this, he starts making some personal connections with a group of higher-ups from the French court that were in Poland to visit Queen Marie Louise Gonzaga. In 1665, his ties to the French would be strengthened even further when he married a woman with more names than she needed, Marie Casimir Louise de Lagrange d'Arquin. She's a French noblewoman, if the 14 names that I just said didn't point that out.
I couldn't tell.
The next few years are pretty hectic for our buddy Jan. He's reelected to Parliament in 1664 and in 1665. In 1663, he took part in a campaign that led the Poles into Russia. From 1665 to 1666, there's an event called the Lombermirsky Rebellion, which is pretty much exactly what you'd think. It's a rebellion led by a guy whose name is completely unpronounceable. He was a member of Polish nobility that started a rebellion over the king putting forth a bill suggesting reforms, including voting by majority on most things in the country. And this voting included everybody, not just if you were born to the right parents. Everybody in the country would be able to vote. It also included changing like tax coding and all that stuff that would kind of help to improve the country. And he's not cool with that, especially the part of letting lesser people vote because they're not noble, so they shouldn't be allowed to vote. On July 13th, 1666, he faces off with the Royal Army, which is led by the king himself. Lubomirski's forces actually ended up winning this battle, and after this, a bunch of elite regiments consisting of some of the better soldiers in the entirety of Poland were captured and murdered by the rebels, which was not great because they killed 4,000 men from the same country as them that they probably shouldn't have because they're going to need them here shortly, but they, it's war. On July 31st at the village of Legowis, both the king and Lubomirski signed this agreement. John Casimir II gives up his plan to do all of this tax reform and let other people vote and all that, and offered amnesty for the rebel side. And all the rebel leader Lubomirski had to do was sign an apology letter. So it's like, hey, sorry, we kicked your ass and killed a bunch of really, really good soldiers. Won't happen again. In 1668, under pressure by the parliament and the nobility, and also the death of the queen, the king would actually abdicate the throne. So for a really short period of time, it was actually, the country was controlled by parliament instead of the king, which isn't going to last too long. So back up to 1665, he's reelected to parliament, and this time it comes with another title, which is Marshal of the Crown. And this is where he becomes the king's right-hand man. Co-head of parliament, he's the head of the military. He's like the guy. Then in May of 1666, he's given another title, which is Field Crown Hetman, which is officially head of the military. This would make him like a field marshal at this point, like what we would consider for that. So basically like a 6-star general or whatever the field marshal would be. In 1666, the Polish Cossack-Tartar War kicks off between, surprisingly, those guys and the Poles and Lithuanians. And this time, the Tartars and Cossacks had some help in the form of the Ottoman Empire, who I feel like I've kind of almost unfairly made the bad guy in this show through a bunch of episodes. But the topics I was talking about, they were the bad guys. So,
if the boot fits,
right? If the weird onion hat and genie shoes fit,
onion hat and genie shoes.
Yeah, their hats looked like onions, and I've always thought genie shoes for the Ottoman Empire for some reason. Like they all look like the security guards from Aladdin.
Oh my god.
So this is a war that's kind of it's been a long time coming. The Cossack-Tartar forces had been waiting for a good time to attack, and with the Poles fighting themselves, now was the best time because they've weakened themselves from civil war. In this battle, the Poles are outnumbered bare minimum 2-1. Jan Sobieski and his forces fought them to a stalemate. They ended up having to sign an armistice after the Battle of Pidhaditsky in October of 1667. Then almost immediately after that, Khan Dilim Giray goes running off the Ottoman the Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed IV, and he renews his allegiance with the Ottoman Empire and then starts asking for them to help him deal with the Poles in the future. And the Ottomans are like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Except we're not going to tell you that when we do, you're not getting their land. We are taking it because we're bigger than you anyway. And they would, if they had taken this, they would have eventually folded these guys in there with them as well. Later that year, he supports the French candidacy of Louis Grand Condé for the Polish throne. So he's trying to help get a Frenchman elected to the King of Poland, which doesn't work out well. And he's only doing it because his wife is also French. So he's trying to continue to strengthen that alliance, because at that point, the French were if you were on mainland Europe, and if you could be buddies with the French, there was nobody that was going to stop you doing whatever you wanted. Because you could just go, no, I have a big brother with a goofy mustache and bread and cheese, and I'm going to do what I want.
And a cigarette in one hand, complaining he needs a nap.
And a striped shirt and a beret, but, he still seems pretty tough, I guess.
And some of them were trapped inside of an invisible box.
Jesus Christ.
He's stuck. I don't know why. He won't tell me why he's in there.
It's like this meme I saw the other day. Is if you gain one super ability, what would it be? As in the first comment was, I would get invisibility, go to France, and fist fight a mime, and it would be the best performance of his life, and he wouldn't even know it.
Oh my god, that'd be incredible. Oh, I would pay to see that. But you'd have to like watch the guy like go bloop, bloop, and go invisible, and then actually see it from. Oh, that'd be so much fun. So, following the election of this guy, Michael Coreybutt Wisnowicki. Holy crap, dude! These names.
Well, I'm sorry. What was that?
Wisnowicki. His
No.
middle name is. His middle name is. Michael Coreybutt Wisnowicki. Yeah, I think he also works at the Scream Factory with Mike, but Mike Wazowski's cousin. He's got 3 eyes. So this guy gets elected, and Jan joins like an opposing faction, and him and his allies. I'm sorry, no. This guy gets elected, and Jan is on the opposite side of this. But the guy that's just been elected, kind of like vetoed a bunch of stuff that Parliament was trying to put through. And this kind of pissed Jan off because he's the head of Parliament and trying to push through all this stuff. So between the infighting politically and trying to get a Frenchman elected to the Polish throne, they're not happy with him. Even though like he's been kicking ass from day one, basically. They're super not cool with this, but the Tartars invade again, and he's like, okay, we'll revisit this. I have to go beat these guys up. And because he was actually good at his job, they couldn't do anything to get him out of Parliament, because you can't just kick a guy out that's basically the only person defending your country. So 1672 rolls around, and we've got some big-time discontent in Poland. The French-backed faction that Sobieski's part of, they're button heads with the other guys. And in the meantime, the Ottomans are starting to move north. They need to stop fighting each other when there's people that want to kill them, but they can't. They weren't super concerned with this like Ottoman attack that's coming in for some reason. I'm not sure why. The king's half of this whole argument calls for the confiscation of all of Jan's land and titles, and they label him an enemy of the state, which is going to be really funny here in about 10 minutes when we find out what happens with him. Hold on.
You ever get hairs like that go straight up your nose hole?
Very rarely do I do. Around my nose, they generally lay down right away.
Oh, you get them where you can feel them curling inside your lip.
Usually when that happens, that's when I start trimming back up from there. It's like I was saying earlier, if I get this feeling like they're not laying down the way they're supposed to, and it drives me nuts.
I almost considered coming back out with the entire middle of my mustache missing.
Surprise!
That'd have been some shit, right? Like, I hope you're watching this.
Like you keep going away every time you come back. It's just a little wider and a little wider.
The cool thing is I can't grow the bad guy mustache because it doesn't come in the middle. So I don't have to worry about that. I can just do the, what was his name? Jose from Red Dead, where it's just like from here out. There's nothing at all in the middle.
And of course, then you get comments asking about it, then just never acknowledge it. It's like one of our goals for this coffin is to get an actual real human skull on there. And then when I'm live streaming on Twitch, if anybody ever asks about it, I never acknowledge it.
Like, yeah, that's cool anyway.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just like change the topic real quick. I wonder how hard it would be to get hold of an actual human skull.
No, don't worry, they're not cheap. I mean, there's literally a store maybe about 45 minutes from us that has one for sale, but they're not cheap. They start at like $700 and go up from there, depending on how complete they are.
Damn. Because I was trying to find a black bear skull for a haunted house thing a couple years ago, and there was a guy like 45 minutes from me that does taxidermy. He's like, "Yeah, I've got one." I'm like, "Okay, cool." He's like, $450, like $450 for a bear skull. He's like, "Yeah, no, go fuck yourself. I can make one for less than that." You know, I'm not going to, but so all of this squabbling kind of ends in a treaty where the king had to sign over a bunch of land in tribute to the Ottomans just so that they wouldn't continue to attack. And they had to do this because they couldn't actually pull together a military force big enough to fight them off because they were too busy arguing with each other still. Jan does the right thing. He kind of buries the hatchet with the king and then continues to go like fight the Ottomans where he can and still negotiate as part of parliament. And with all that stuff going on, they drop all the charges against him and they're like, we're not going to take your land and all that. Then the same year, 1672, the Lipka Rebellion kicks off, which was a large number of Tartars that had been in the service of the Poles that were owed back pay. And they also wanted to stay on the land that they technically were gifted and get paid for fighting, which they had not paid them since they started, basically. And they're at this point in time, the Poles are basically like, we're not paying you, and we want you to leave now, which was not a great move. But it didn't really matter because they have Jan Sobieski and like Hussars and very well trained guys, and it didn't work out so hot for the Tartars. But a large number of them would defect to the Ottomans and start fighting with them instead. November 11th, 1673, Jan hits the jackpot. He doesn't know it yet, but he hits the jackpot. The Battle of Kotlin is a huge success for the Poles. Sobieski and 30,000 troops laid siege to Kotlin Fortress. In the first few days of the month, they kind of just hold them in there. And this is kind of tricky because of how the fort is defended, because it's in the middle of a bend in the river, so it's defended on two sides by the river, naturally, and then there's like almost like a cliff halfway through the other half of it, so there's really not a lot of places to try to attack it from. And then also the Ottomans had built like ramparts all around it, so they made it very, very difficult to attack. On the 10th, he leads a charge that's basically like a bluff charge to try to shake up the Ottomans that are outside in the small little town that's around there. The next day, the attack actually starts for real, and he takes advantage of the fact that the Turks are tired, wet, and not equipped for the cold. They are not used to fighting in Poland. They're more used to fighting in like Spain and the northern half of the Middle East, where it's a little bit warmer than Poland, where it gets miserable, I would assume. A lot of those Central European countries aren't like tropical.
Right?
Like, I'm going to summer in Poland because it's... No, you're not going to hang out there in the winter. The Turks are now exhausted, and then in the morning, the Poles actually hit the camp itself. They hit it with a cannon salvo, then they have infantry and dragoons go in and storm the ramparts. Dragoons are cavalry that can also get off and fight on foot. So they're lighter armored. They don't really have a lot of like leg armor because they can get off and move, and a lot of the time they would have had guns, which was not super common back then. So these guys get in there and they start shaking stuff up and they make room for the cavalry. And Jan and the Hussars rush through the breach in the ramparts. The Turks kind of try to counterattack. Doesn't work out so hot. They end up taking this camp. The Turkish troops, under orders of Hussein Pasha, end up evacuating to the other bank of the river. So they're trying to get across the river on the only bridge that's available. And as they're running across it, the bridge collapsed because it had been like hounded with artillery a couple of times before that. So under the weight of all these guys running across on horseback, the bridge just lets loose and they go into the water. Not really any record of how many guys went in and how many came back out, but it probably wasn't good. The Turks started this battle off with 35,000 men, and of that, a conservative number of how many of them were killed is 20 to 30,000. The Poles and Lithuanians counted their dead at about 2,000, which that's probably a more accurate number. So with all that going on, Moldovan and Wallachian troops switch sides and decide to support the Poles, which is cool because then we have Dracula soldiers on our side now. The Turkish I did it again, David. Turkish Folgers, son of a bitch. And he sent me a picture today. I was like, I'm gonna do it again, and then I did it again.
I said I put that in as a prompt in Chat GPT last night as we were sitting here. It was like Winged Hussars and drinking Folgers coffee, and then I sent it to Sarah, and then I sent it to you.
You should just leave that in there, see if people catch it.
I will. So they withdrew from Poland after their supplies and most of the artillery was captured. But in the retreat, they ended up holding on to like most of Western Ukraine. And that part where I said he hit the jackpot, the day that the attack started, Jan Sobieski received word that Michael Wisniewski, the king of Poland, had died the day before. Jan Sobieski is about to become one of the most powerful men in Europe. It's going to take a couple years, though, because he's still out fighting, and he's not going to just like, you guys got this and go back and, get crowned and all that. It's not who he is. February of 1676, he finally returns. So it's like almost 2 full years later. He's crowned King John III of Poland. He doesn't like that, and he's like, I'm King Jan, whatever. I'm the king. You can't tell me what to call me. So he's now king of one of the biggest populations in Europe, and the country is an absolute disaster. And this is as far as we made it last night. No calls for toilets yet, so we are good. Almost half a century of never-ending war, be it external or internal, it's got a way of putting an economy in a bad spot. I mean, 20 years of constant war, kind of, we know what happened there. Yay. Another issue was the court is kind of doing business with foreign countries instead of their own. He's got plans for Poland, and he kind of wants to set up his own dynasty by regaining any kind of land that was lost or surrendered. One of the things he does is he's trying to get all of the Christian kingdoms of Europe to come together and basically boot the entire Ottoman Empire out of Europe. Because at this point, they've been there for like 400 years, because they had come up through Central Europe and kind of swung over into Spain, and the Ottoman Empire was huge. It took up a giant chunk of Europe, which I didn't realize how much it was until I looked at a map of it. They controlled a substantial amount of Europe. So being fairly new to his position and being in a little bit of financial problem, he's not really in a particular spot to be able to do that. He also kind of wants to go north and fight the Prussians, because why not? Thankfully for him, his French allies talk him out of trying to fight two enemies at the same time, and they convince him to focus on the Ottomans, because honestly, the Ottomans are a bigger threat than the Prussians. And if you play your cards right, you might be able to get the Prussians to help you fight the Ottomans. Maybe. In the fall of 1674, he kicked stuff off with the Ottomans, and it's kind of unknown if it caught them off guard or if the Poles just straight up overwhelmed them. But they pretty quickly retook the city and fortress of Bratslav, Mogliev, and Bar, which set up a good strong line in the sand at Poland's southern border in Ukraine.
Okay, I'm sure you're wondering what the hell's going on with her over here. She put us on mute and she's like, show me the onion hat. So I had to show it to her. So we're looking at Ottoman clothing from Wikipedia, and then she absolutely lost it. That's what she's been laughing at over here. Because I'm sure you were going to notice her, since I figured I better interject and let you know what she's laughing at over here.
Isn't it silly?
I understand where the shoes come into play with that now. Wow. That's a look.
People were terrified of them. Absolutely terrified of them.
Yeah, it's like a phrase I saw in a video today during my lunch that probably can be just as terrifying. Airborne Gurkhas.
Right? I saw that. Oh, the Gurkhas? Oh my goodness. They're tiny little Nepalese murder machines. I think the tallest one I've ever read about was like 5'4". But during World War II, they went through and just faced the Japanese. They fought They've been fighting for the British Empire since like 17 something, and they wanted to set up an airborne Gurkha division, and they only had like 5 dudes sign up. And then when they're like, okay, well, this is weird. One of the Gurkhas is like, you want us to do like, we're supposed to jump out of planes. It's like, yeah. It's like, okay, cool. And then they had to explain to these guys that we're going to give you parachutes before you jump out of the planes. You're not just going to jump out and land and fight these guys like a superhero, where it's because they're like, oh no, that sounds fine too. Like, we're totally cool with just diving out of a plane. And
like, Gurkhas are the only thing on the planet that can make Chuck Norris cry.
Can you show me a Gurkha?
you got to show her the knife too. Oh boy.
And that's the knife that they carry for combat.
That looks like it could be a little bit hurty.
A little bit hurty.
And they are heavy.
Are they?
Like, that thing's like 2.5 pounds. I used to have one of those. They're pretty hefty.
Damn.
And
you gotta think a little 5-foot murder machine swing on this thing.
There was stories when they were fighting in Burma where a Japanese guy jumped down into one of their trenches, and this dude took both of his hands off in one shot with that thing. Like, picked his rifle up with 2 hands connected to it still and threw it back out into the middle of the field.
Jesus.
Yeah. They are insane. But they're also the same people that, like, climb Mount Everest and smoke cigarettes while they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's like...
They don't fear death. Death fears them.
Yeah. It's like, what kind what kind of dwarf are you? Are you a combat dwarf or a climbing dwarf? We're mountain dwarfs. Okay. So 1675, he defeated a force of Turks and Tartars at Liv, and the following year, the bad guys tried to fight back across the Denpir River, which is where that last fortress was, to the town of Zorwano, and they pretty handily got their asses kicked and ended up having to sign a peace treaty with the Poles. This little bit of peace was kind of a chance for Jan to, he needs to get some stuff done. So he starts building trying to build better relationships with the rest of the nobility in Europe. He completely revamps the army. Infantry are now going to drop their pikes in favor of battle axes, where they're going to have, long-handled, short-handled battle axes. And the cavalry stopped existing as it had been for a long time. Up until here, it had been like a mix of hussars, Tartar horsemen, random dudes that just happen to own horses. Now we are going full-blown, like, we just have hussars now. Like, we don't need anything else. This is all we need for guys on horses. And, like, maybe a handful of dragoons just because, they can have guns and shit. With all the changes and relative peace that he's built with the Ottomans, he now turns his eyes north to the filthy Prussians again. He wants his land back, and they had taken over a ton of land over the course of a few years before he took the crown. But the Prussians had signed treaties with France and the Brandenburgers, who are another big family. Not the Habsburgs, who they'll come up eventually. And we talked about the Chin last night. I'll throw pictures in, but because that thing is insane. So they signed all these the Prussians have signed treaties with the French so that they can't technically attack the Prussians now because they're also buddies with the French. And if you do that, it's going to put the French in a weird situation where it's like we have to pick whose side we want to take. And then, obviously whoever side we don't take is going to be pissy. Politics. So all this is going on, and then the Ottomans start making noise again to the south. So he's got to hold off on this attack on the Prussians. So he's also kind of made a move there. So all of this is going on, and he kind of catches wind of this plan where he still has enemies in Poland, and they're trying to remove him from power to put Charles of Lorraine in place. That's another guy I can send you pictures of because it's just, there's no way in hell that guy. Nobody should have respected this guy to follow into combat because he looked silly. Like powdered wig and, powdered cheeks and all that shit. Like he looked goofy. I don't know. So the treaty that the French signed with the Prussians put some strain on French-Polish relations, and then during a parliamentary meeting, the French ambassador is physically removed and found to be part of a group that's planning to assassinate Jan Sobieski. You probably would have wanted to bring a couple of guys to do that because he would have beat the brakes off of this guy on his own. So when one door tries to kill you, another one opens. So he starts cozying up with the Habsburgs in Austria. he starts seeing the writing on the wall that, like, if an all-out war breaks out in the area, he's got very few allies. So he's also kind of getting cozy with Leopold I of the Holy Roman Empire, not to be confused with Leopold I of Belgium, whose son is like a top 5 scumbag in history, and I covered him in a 2-parter. So part of that deal was that if either capital was ever in trouble, the other is going to come help out. The capital of the Holy Roman Empire at the time is Vienna, which is in Austria. So things need to start happening quickly because spies have been sent all over the place, and they're bringing back word that the Ottomans are gearing up for a very large assault here into Europe. Pope Innocent VI sets up meetings for what would become known as the Holy League. I like the idea of Christian Avengers. It would be kind of funny. So member states of the Holy League include the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Holy Roman Empire, and Habsburg Monarchy, because it's all the same thing, the Venetian Republic, and surprisingly, of all of them, the Tsardom of Russia, because the Poles and Russians have kind of had their differences forever, and they're going to be buddies here. That will never, ever happen again. Thinking that one of the biggest targets for the Ottomans is going to be either Krakow or Lwów, which are both Polish cities, Sobieski starts building up defenses around these two places. He was completely wrong, because not long after his defenses are set up in July, he receives an Austrian envoy asking for help. Being a man of his word, he starts getting the band together and amassing his forces. So quick hop back to 1682, just so we can kind of see exactly what's going on here, because the Ottomans didn't just like teleport to Vienna. Sultan Mehmet IV told Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha to, he's like, we're going to not worry too much about this whole peace treaty thing that we have with the Poles and Lithuanians. It's not a huge deal. And Leopold I of the Holy Roman Empire, we've got one with him, but that one's going to expire here shortly, so we don't really have to worry about that. We can just get the wheels in motion. Within days, on October 12th, 1682, the Sultan himself left Istanbul for Adrianople. The Grand Vizier left on the 19th, and the two groups stayed at Adrianople from December of 1682 until March of 1683, because you don't march in the winter, even in, Turkey, because it's still fairly cold and snowy and nasty. Early April 1683, the Grand Ottoman Army left Adrianople, and they reached Sofia, Bulgaria, and then Nice, Serbia. They do all of that by the 24th. Right in the middle of that, on the 10th, Charles, Duke of Lorraine, is given command of the Imperial Army, which is the Holy Roman Empire. And on the 21st, a Habsburg's War Council is being convened and held in Vienna. May 3rd, the Ottomans hit Belgrade, and for his actions there, Mustafa was made commander of the army. June 22nd, the Imperial forces reached Győr, and on July 1st, the Ottomans land there as well. So we now have the Austrians and Ottomans in the same place. So it's about to get not good. The Ottomans mounted an attack, and Lorraine drew to Berg, and then on the 12th, another Imperial War Council is held in Vienna. Even though King Leopold's left the city, by the 13th, our footstool friends are just outside of Vienna. That was an Ottoman joke.
I was like, wait, hold on. The footstool friends. I was like, wait a minute. What does he mean by that? And then he's like, it's an Ottoman joke. I was like, okay.
Ah, son of a bitch. So leading up to everything here, the people of Vienna are actually pretty relaxed about everything. They don't really seem super worried about this giant horde of Ottomans that's not too far outside the city. Until like hundreds of refugees start showing up from outside town. The other issue was that defenses weren't complete, and the garrison is only about 2,000 men, and they're not even like highly trained soldiers. These are like 2,000 just dudes from town that they gave spears to. Like, stand on the wall and look scary. things start going sideways almost instantly. July 5th, people in the city start rioting after groups of Tartars attack the city, and they get through the walls. They're riding people down on horses. Like, it's not good. The people of the city smashed windows out of the palace of Bishop Emmerich Sinelli. In the same day, there's a bunch of edicts ordered telling older monks and nuns and foreigners to leave the city, and anyone who owned a place where people could congregate or sleep, anybody that's there, they need to start making lists of who is staying there, so we can kind of get an idea if we have an enemy inside the gates, basically. Now things are starting to get more serious after word had reached Vienna about the defeat of Charles of Lorraine, and he also sent word that the Ottomans had entered Habsburg land, which is a no-no. With everything else going down, it's decided that the royal court should flee the city before, obviously, they don't have a chance to. Before Leopold left, he sent out a couple of fairly important documents. First, he recalled every regiment of the Imperial Army back to Austria, essentially. And the second was to order General Schultz to return to the Va River, where he had a little bit of a stronghold. He also sent letters out to all the princes in the Holy Roman Empire asking for support. Then, rumors start flying that a force of Ottomans is going to basically be allowed to take the city, and that the court was leaving the town. And this caused right around 60,000 people to flee Vienna. On the 10th, it's finally confirmed that the Ottomans are headed straight to Vienna, and there's really not much in the way to stop them. So the defenders finished up some very basic emplacements, and they start mounting guns wherever they could, and they do get some good news in the form of 1,000 more men showing back up. But this is obviously still not enough. That puts you at 1,000 actual trained soldiers and 2,000 dudes with pitchforks. That's not enough to defend an entire city from these guys. On July 12th, Charles of Lorraine sent 5 regiments of foot over the Danube River and kept another 7 on the other side of the river. So that's a total, between all of those regiments, of about 12,000 men. The same day, a war council was held where they decided that the suburbs of Vienna needed to be burned down to keep the Ottomans from having cover as they approached the city. So they just put out an order to burn everything outside of the walls. It didn't matter what it was, burn it to the ground. If you can let the people into the city where they're defended, cool, go for it. If you can't, sucks to be them. So unfortunately, only the stick-built homes obviously would burn. Brick and stone buildings, they just basically got the interiors burned out. The next morning, the Ottomans arrive and attack some of the people that are outside the walls. These are all people that were older, that refused to leave their homes. They ride through, they kill men, women, children, livestock, the grass, anything in that area is now dead. Now is probably a good time to talk about a specialized Ottoman unit that's going to become pretty important for the rest of this, and that's the Janissaries. These guys are one of the most elite military units that the Ottoman forces ever put into play. They're essentially a mix between combat engineers and a recon unit. I think they would have called them sappers during Vietnam. These are the guys that would sneak in and blow shit up and get back out. I will probably do a more detailed episode on them at some point in time. So with everyone in place, they besiege the city. The Ottomans have 120,000 men besieging the city. There's 16,000 defenders inside the walls. This is not a good time to be in Vienna. The mayor of the city was on the walls when a horseman rode to the gates and handed a scroll to a soldier inside. It read, quote, "Accept Islam and live in peace as Christians under the Sultan, and if any men prefer, let them depart peaceably, taking his goods with him. But if you resist, then death or spoliation or slavery shall be the fate of all of you." The mayor declined the order, and because this is essentially an order of convert or die, because when the Ottomans rolled through, they would say, yeah, you can still practice your religion, whatever it is, but you're going to pay a jizya, which is a you're not a Muslim tax. So you're paying up a ton of money. You're paying up a ton of you're paying in livestock and grain and all that stuff, to the point that it would basically starve you to death. You wouldn't be able to afford to live.
Damn.
The Ottomans start the first wave of artillery as Imperial troops are still trying to wall up the gate. Good news for the defenders is that the Ottomans are still trying to assemble their siege cannons. The stuff that they're firing at them at the moment are basically anti-personnel cannons, so they're a lot smaller. If they can get the big ones together, they're going to blow holes in the walls. One of the big events during the siege, as the artillery was keeping Christian heads down behind the walls, the Janissaries kind of sneak up to the walls and they start digging. They're digging tunnels under the walls, and it's not to pop up inside and take them by surprise. July 23rd, the first of the massive mines that they planted exploded, and it didn't really do a lot of damage like the Ottomans wanted. But it kind of gives the Turks a new place to hunker down near the walls so that they can branch out and do attacks in different spots from here. A couple days later, another mine explodes. Again, doesn't kill a bunch of people, but it does destroy a small section of the wooden palisade around the outside of the castle. More good news is that the Turks decided that after that one, they'd come out of the trenches and try to assault the Austrians that came up. So they come up out of the ground and straight into a crossfire from 2 Austrian emplacements and lost a couple thousand guys, because they're coming up out of a tunnel into a crater and then up out of a crater onto flat ground and just getting shot in the face. It's not the best place to be. Sieges, usually not super exciting. One side's stuck inside, the other side's outside, waiting for them to either surrender, starve, or whatever. Artillery exchange, an occasional assault, blah, blah, blah. Let's just get to the good part. The Polish forces, now led by 54-year-old King Jan Sobieski, crossed the Danube River September 6th at Tulin, which is about 20 miles from Vienna. Here's the part where I want you to show her that picture that I sent you.
Okay.
Because this guy doesn't look like a king. He looks like the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, that's definitely the Bears kind of face.
Yeah.
It's like your uncle from Chicago that's a volunteer firefighter.
Yeah.
You know? Not that there's anything wrong with volunteer firefighters. I love volunteer firefighters. I'm related to a ton of them. But that's the dude that's a volunteer firefighter. I could have worked in the city, but I didn't want to. It's too far away from home, that guy. So here he hooks up with some forces from Saxony, Bavaria, Baden, and some other areas across the Holy Roman Empire. He also has some hired Cossack mercenaries. Louis XIV, the King of France, refused to send troops because he had not been buddies with the Habsburgs. So this is you've heard fighting over Alsace, Lorraine, that area in France that France and Germany have been bickering and arguing over for a billion years. They're both from that area and they don't like each other because they keep taking that section of land from each other. So that's why the King of France is nah, I'm not sending anybody to help. Where if he had, realistically, I don't think it would have had any output, any difference in how everything came out. So according to what's been beaten out of captured Ottomans, the numbers besieging the city had shrank from 150,000 down to about 90,000, which is good, but still not great. Sobieski links up with Charles of Lorraine, who's marching south also. They link up and King Jan takes control of the entire force, including the guys that aren't his. Because some of Charles's guys had a chance to talk to Jan personally, and they realized that this is kind of one of those alpha male situations where it's this guy is kind of a pansy. This guy's going to go in here and kick their asses, and we want to fight with him instead. So Charles takes his goofy powdered wig and like gets out of the way and lets Jan take control. As the reinforcements are on the way, the Ottomans had been like mining the hell out of the Austrian forces and walls. They're dangerously close to blowing a hole in the wall that they can get through and into the city. The Ottomans eventually would break the defenses, but David, I want you to do the thing, because it's September 12th, and they look up on the mountain.
And then the Winged Hussars arrived, coming down the mountainside, or however the song goes.
And it's like, they make it sound way more badass in the song, like they're just like hammering ass down the hill. But in reality, they're not charging down the mountainside. They're very, very carefully picking their way around rocks down the mountainside. Jan Sobieski and his forces were on top of a hill overlooking the city, and the Ottoman forces were looking up at them, and he delivers an absolute banger of a quote. Quote, "Reflect also that your king fights at the head of you, and withal be confident that the God of battle, whose cause we defend, will undoubtedly fight for us." I mean, if you're like a super hardcore Christian, you're going to go, yeah, let's do this.
Right.
So the first contact between the Turks and Hussars at Vienna was when one of the squad leaders, Sienowiski, I guess, sends 150 Crown Hussars to retake the ground. So the difference between a Winged Hussar and a Crowned Hussar is the fact that the Crown Hussars are the best of the Winged Hussars. So these dudes are on a totally different level when it comes to, I'm going to come down there and beat your ass and there's nothing you can do about it. So they slam into the first line of Turks, and as they hit them, the first line breaks, and when they get through, the second line just kind of folds in around them. And then the third line around them as well. Only a third of the attacking Hussars were able to make it back. So Sienowiski sent another cavalry charge. It was just a regular company of Hussars and Dragoons. And this is when the Turks faked a retreat, which pulls the company right into a massive attack from the left wing of the Ottoman forces. Charles of Lorraine was out on the left wing. Oh.
I did not expect him to be just sitting there.
He's like, what you guys doing?
He's been on the back of the chair most of the time we've been here recording, and then I did not expect to see him just sitting there like he was like part of the conversation.
You're more than welcome to hang out, dude. Like,
he will.
He's like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I might go back up on the back of the chair. Charles of Lorraine is out on the left wing of the Polish forces, and his men kind of want to get into the fight. So he let them fight. He sent them at the Ottoman camp, which is most likely the strongest part of the line. Seeing this, other infantry companies advance on the camp as well, and seeing that, Jan decides that now is the time. He saw the Ottomans are panicking and they're close to breaking, and he just gives a battle cry, levels his lance, and personally led his 20,000 Hussars down the mountainside. Wings rattling, tiger and leopard skins fluttering in the wind. This sounds, again, way cooler in the song because they're just flying down, and here they're like, there's rocks, we gotta be careful, we don't want to step in a gopher hole. So we're not charging down the mountainside, we're picking our way down the hillside at a reasonable and responsible speed.
Yeah, because like the sign makes you think that it's just a huge line of them just, in a thunderous cloud, and kind of like that. But, but they're not really that. So it's almost like thinking of the Austin Powers moment of the steamroller for the most part. Yeah.
Or for anybody younger than us, the Zamboni scene in Deadpool.
No, yeah, that's also a good, way to put it as well.
I'm sure one of your parents, my audience is generally like 35 to 45, so you guys have VHSs of Austin Powers somewhere, I'm sure. Or DVDs at least. So once they're clear, they pick up speed and they run straight into the Ottomans, who had moved out of the trenches and up into open ground.
And this is where they knew they got.
Thank you. Because my first thought was, those guys are on horses. Let's maybe go back down into this giant asshole in the ground that we made where the horses can't get us. nah, we're going to go straight up and see what happens. Jan sent his son's unit of hussars to charge the center of the camp. Some of the men in Jan's unit said that they could hear the lances of Prince Alexander's units shatter as they found home in Ottomans. And those lances were beefy, like a couple of inches around at the point. They're
shit.
Pretty big, and they're breaking them off in guys. The hussars suffered some like large-ish losses, but the Turks still fled because of how intense the assault was. It also didn't help that Ibrahim Pasha, one of the main generals, had kind of taken off before all this stuff happened because he realized that once everybody else started showing up, now's my time to leave so that I don't die. The Turks collapsed back to their own left wing and attempted to counterattack against Hetman Jablonski, that who was another Hussar unit leader. They try this, they fail miserably. With that, the Ottomans would abandon the camp and fully retreat except for Kara Mustafa. He sees the banner of the Prophet. It's in danger of being taken by these filthy heathens that have just come off the hill. So he leads a charge back into the camp to try to rescue this flag and to try to recover as much of the loot as he can that they've taken. He did end up getting the banner, but he and his bodyguards were surrounded, and he gave 3 orders. 1, all the men that were in the trenches running artillery should retreat. 2, destroy as much of the equipment that we have here as possible. So we want to start spiking guns, destroying any of the mines that we have so that those can't be taken. And number 3, kill all the captives. Thankfully, Sobieski's men's, yes, stopped the 3rd order from being executed when they ran down everyone in and around the prison tent. So all these guys that are showing up to try to start killing women and children that they've taken captive, he personally led the charge and stomped these guys into the dirt. Like, good for you. The only person that didn't get beaten to death here was Mustafa, who they let live because Sobieski knew that living while his army had been decimated was going to work itself out in the end for him. He would eventually take off and catch up with the very, very tail of his retreating army. Magnitude of the defeat is not lost to Kara Mustafa, who tries to escape the Sultan by blaming his defeat on subordinate commanders. So he ends up actually going to the Sultan and saying, it's not my fault, it's theirs. They didn't listen when I told them to do whatever. Sultan Mehmed IV, the fourth, is not convinced by any of this. During the battle,
honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I've been waiting for that to happen this entire time because it keeps seeing a buzz around on your camera.
I don't have any windows open. I don't know where the hell he came from. Anyway, so the Sultan was not convinced by any of this because he knew that during the battle, the collective of Christian commanders and troops fought and kicked their asses. Like, tactically, they couldn't stop them. So he had a lot of respect for these guys. The victory wasn't so much due to any kind of tactical brilliance as it was to Mustafa neglecting to carry out his orders the way he was supposed to and being incredibly arrogant about how he did things. Because he failed to properly fortify his army. They didn't build up any defenses around the camps. And he left his guys there to die, which is kind of a big no-no. Mustafa would end up paying for his failure. He gets himself a cool little Christmas present, December 25th, 1683. He's staying at a palace in Belgrade, and the Sultan's emissaries executed him by strangulation and sent his head to Constantinople as proof that we got the job done. So the Sultan is obviously pissy about this entire giant loss, and he's got a good reason for it. A Turkish victory would not have meant the end of being able to basically push Christianity out into one spot where they could then wipe them out in all of Europe, because eventually the French would have had to get involved, and they had enough troops and know-how that they would have been able to do something. But Austria was saved, and more importantly, like everything here is starting to kind of turn up better for the Holy Roman Empire. After hundreds of years of warfare, they turned the tide of the Ottoman Empire coming further into Europe. So anyway, they forced them away from Austria, which is kind of the beginning of the end for the Ottomans in Europe. All these other guys would go on to live for like a longer time. Jan Sobieski, on the other hand, died of a heart attack June 17th, 1696 at the age of 67, which is pretty good for a dude that spent damn near half his entire life on the battlefield, which is a place where guys tended to die young, and 67 back then would have made you like ancient. The Hussars, who basically became obsolete around 1775, once everybody's starting to get more into guns. A cavalry unit like this is completely obsolete. You don't need them anymore. They do have a little bit of a legacy, though, because the Polish 11th Armored Cavalry Division, their badge features a Hussar helmet, lance, and wings. On May 1st, 2024, the Polish military announced that they had bought like a flight wing of American-made F-35s that are going to be Polish operated, which I believe they were actually the first country, like even before Israel, that got F-35s from us. And they designated them as the Hussars. Homage to like the winged murder machines that came before them. The charge down the hill at Vienna is the largest cavalry attack in human history, and that is a record that will not be broken. 20,000 men on horseback charged down the side of the mountain and attacked the Turks. And
by charge, he means tiptoed around rocks.
Yes. Until we hit flat ground, and then we just we stood on the gas. Most importantly, though, they're the inspiration for the Ride of the Rohirrim and Lord of the Rings. So if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, that giant-ass cavalry attack is based directly off of the Winged Hussars. Because J.R.R. Tolkien was a history nerd, which is awesome. So
makes
that's
a lot of sense.
That's Jan Sobieski and the Winged Hussars. So thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Hopefully, what's that?
Said thanks for having us.
Anytime.
But I think I had sent you a screenshot when I was playing the latest Indiana Jones game of the Right Circle. There's a level where you're underneath the Vatican in this vault. It's like a little mini boss fight, and there's a literal armor, like Winged Hussar armor inside this area.
I think so, yeah.
Because I was in the middle of this boss fight running around, and I was like, wait a minute, and I ignored the boss and turned around and I'm like, no shit, that's what that is.
You want to look at the guy and be like, hold on, one second,
yeah.
What's that? Actually, have you ever played Mountain Blade Bannerlord? Any of those?
No, but I think I'd seen that when I was looking for mods for City Skylines 2. It came up on one of the apps that I was trying to find mods for on that.
So it's actually pretty cool. It's like half like real-time strategy and then half like actually fighting battles and stuff. I think that's the only game that I've actually downloaded mods for, because there's one faction that you can play as, and then you upgrade everything in your cavalry and you end up through the mod with Winged Hussars.
Oh, nice.
I was like, I built an army of like 5,000 just straight up cavalry. Like, this is going to be fun. And you get enough shit going on and it actually lags the computer down.
Damn.
There's a lot of shit going on here, but all right. So one more time, let us know where we can find you guys.
Yeah, we are from Macabre Emporium, where you can find us on Wednesdays on Spotify, Apple iTunes, or anywhere where you get your podcasts.
All the places.
And you guys are on Facebook?
Yep, we have a Facebook group. I even have a Twitch channel that I do stream games from time to time on there as well, too.
Hell yeah. And you guys still do TikTok, too?
It's there, but we haven't got it caught up yet.
Yeah. It needs to be updated. It will be updated soon.
Nice. I had one for like 24 hours, and then I realized that the only person that had actually looked at anything was somebody that I worked with, and I went, oh. I deleted it. Like, I don't need any of you people finding out what I do outside of there.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel that.
So again, thank you guys for coming on, and we're all going to die someday. So go out and do some goon shit and leave a mark on the world, just like Jan Sobieski and the Hussars. Reflect also that your king fights at the head of you, and as well be confident that the god of battle whose cause we defend will undoubtedly fight for us. That was Jan Sobieski. My name's Kevin, and this is History Goon.